Folks, this is Chris, Highland CCG. You've heard of yo-yo dieting. This is an example of yo-yo collecting. Let's see how it turned out. Alright, so today I'm going to talk about these two books, Uncanny X-Men 141, 142, also known as Days of Future Past. These are my childhood grails. If you could have asked, 10 or 11-year-old me, what's the thing in the world you would want more than anything, it would have been these. I would go to the comic book store every week. I'd be buying usually, whatever the latest issue of Spider-Man or Uncanny X-Men, buying Marvel cards, that kind of stuff. And these were behind the glass, and I was riveted by, what is going on here? How has Cyclops been slain? How did they apprehend Storm? Old man Wolverine, what's going on here? Well, Wolverine's gonna die? Like, what's going on here? This is amazing. I need to read these. So, yeah, it captured my imagination like nothing else. I was obsessed with these. There was no internet. I didn't have any outlet or venue to find out anything about them other than I really thought they were cool. I'm going to move through time with these books, and I'm going to talk about, kind of the current value in adjusted dollars and the dollars at the time. So at the time, in 1991, these were for sale in my local comic book store. I believe it was $125 each. It might have been for the pair, but my recollection is it was something like $125 each. Raw near mint. That is the equivalent of $592.96 today. That's crazy. Obviously unattainable. Not something I was going to be able to do. But lucky for me, a few years later, eBay comes along and it crushes the comic book market because suddenly all this supply pours in and these books plummeted, and I was able to get them in 2003 as a pair in really nice shape. These are not those copies. I got them in really nice shape, probably like very fine plus or whatever. $10.50 for both. That's the equivalent of about 20 bucks now. So that was a huge win. That was amazing. And in my collection they went, and in my collection they stayed. Several years later, I think it was 2007 or 2008, was the first New York City Comic Con. I was living in New York City at the time and attended the first two Comic Cons. At the first one, Chris Claremont was there signing the books. Obviously he wrote these and many other Uncanny X-Men for many years, and so brought them with me to get signed, which I instantly regretted because he's a writer and not an artist, and so he just signed all over the front of the books and ruined the pictures, which is like the best thing about them. And it's like this, he could have signed right down here, he could have signed over here, everything would have been fine, but he signed like right on the middle. And so in my mind I was like, God, these are ruined now, this sucks. But I put them back in my collection and they stayed there for a little while. And then in 2015, I don't remember exactly why, but I was probably just short on money and needed some. I was paying student loans pretty aggressively at that time, so I was probably like just selling off stuff. And I looked these up and they had appreciated, and I think it had to do with the movie, right? They were coming out with that movie, which turned out to be god awful, but it bumped up the books, so I was able to sell the pair signed for $130, which is the equivalent of about $180 in today's dollars. So doing okay now. That's a huge amount of profit realized. I'm up about $157 in today's dollars at this point, which is great. But of course, the sirens call. They always call to you. And a year went by, and I got a big raise at work, and I decided to treat myself to, of course, 141, 142. I bought beautiful graded copies, 9.6 CGC with white pages, beautiful books, and it was really cool to have them. The thing I didn't like though was that they were kind of big and they didn't fit in the short box, and I didn't have a good other place to kind of store them, so that I wasn't thrilled with, and that kind of annoyed me and it kind of annoyed me like every day that I had these things kind of just out on their own. So, but you know, I held on them for a while. A couple years later, 2018, I decided to see how they're doing. So, and they had appreciated quite a bit. I was able to sell them in 2018 for $475, which is the equivalent of about $607 in today's dollars. So now I'm up almost $400, which is amazing. And so I decided, you know, kind of that's good. Let's leave it there. Fast forward 3 years later, I'm getting nostalgic again. This is 2021. Everyone's talking about comic books all damn day, and so I decided to just get some reader copies. So not great condition. This one especially is not great condition. It's got a little crease there and some discoloration and stuff. This one I thought was pretty nice looking actually. But I got the pair of these for $46, which is like $56 now, and I'm still up, you know, a lot. I'm still up like $335, so I can feel good about that, and I have these now and I can read them whenever I want, so that's great. A few years go by, it's 2025, which brings us to today, and I decided to buy them again. I don't know what's wrong with me, but I bought CGC 9.6 white pages. For all I know, they're the exact same books that I sold. I don't know, but I bought them for $487 in today's dollars. So all in all, now with these books added to the collection, which I think are very beautiful. So now with these four, I am down $152, and I am very happy with that. I would gladly pay $152 to have these four books. Right, beautiful copies to enjoy, great condition, and reader copies, which is kind of, I think that's where we're at now, and we're good. I am good with that price, and I don't feel the need now to sell these. I think these are going to stay, and I even bought a really nice picture frame. It's designed for CGC cases, and you can buy them. You know, you can buy a single, you can buy a double, triple. I think up to 6 can be housed in these different frames, and so I got a double frame for these two to go into, and I'm very happy and excited to get them hung up, and I'll of course share that update with you once they're on the wall looking pretty. But man, what a journey. Buying, selling, buying, selling. I am happy where I'm at. Obviously I'm not up, but I think if I sold these in the future, could certainly, you know, be profitable overall. But I'm not going to do that. I think these are going to stay, which is not something that, you know, I usually keep it open and revisit and think about, you know, do I want this thing or not? I'm constantly churning stuff out of my collection because I'm constantly acquiring stuff. So I need to, as a collector who likes space, and I don't like clutter, I don't like, you know, piles, I want to keep things as clean as possible. That kind of appeals to me, that sustains me. I also don't want to spend, you know, just keep spending money. I want to recycle. So that appeals to me as a collector to do that, and so I'm naturally doing that. What I'm not naturally doing is rebuying the same thing over and over again. So that's where this one is a little bit more unique. Typically, once I don't really want something anymore, I don't really want it anymore, and I move on. So that's kind of my story here. I am curious if anybody else has, you know, what's like your childhood grail. If you had to go back to your 10-year-old self, what was that kid obsessed with more than anything else, and were you able to, you know, get it at some point? And interested to hear about, you know, people's philosophies. Like, are you a collector, and does that mean you're just always acquiring more? Do other people cycle through their stuff? So yeah, interested to hear all that stuff in the comments. So please do comment, and of course subscribe if you haven't yet. And that's what I had. So hope you have a great rest of your day. Hope tomorrow is even better, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.